Okay, so I guess everybody should know all this by now. If you don't, what have you been doing with your life? But 41st President of the United States, George Herbert Walker Bush, died last week, and it's sad. It's really is sad. I mean, he's a good man. He led a good life, had a good family. Debatable over one of the sons, at least, but he led a good life. Volunteered to fight in World War II. Was a fighter pilot on the USS San Jacinto, a ship I cannot ever visit because it got scrapped in the scrapyard. And you can disagree with his politics all you want, but you can't say that he wasn't an honorable man. He did what he could. He did what he thought he could do. He tried reaching around the aisle. He wanted to bring people together. He would never really insult his opponents. That wasn't the type of man he was, and in terms of political dignity, he was truly the last gentleman president, though George W. at least holds at least some of that in contention, too. So, he died. I think he's probably on his way to his last resting place. I'm pretty sure he went back to Texas a couple days ago. And, George W. Bush gave a pretty emotional speech the other day. And he ended off with that he's with their mother, he's with their mother and father get together in heaven. And, and George H.W.'s last words were, "I love you," to his sons, and then he passed. It's an emotional thing having a president die, especially in a way like that where he's telling, his children that he loves them. And, it's a tough thing to go through as a country, especially how divided we are. Many people, especially back in the day when he was vice president for Ronald Reagan and then became president afterwards, he was an honorable man. He tried doing what he could, but the way he approached his politics, many people questioned him. And of course, being a Republican, slandered it outright for doing stuff. Like, people accused him of being a warmonger. People accused him of such and such. People accused him of racism. Blah 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 blah. Things he weren't. That he wasn't. I mean, if he was really a warmonger, why didn't he go into Iraq to deal with the Saudis? Well, not the Saudis, to deal with Saddam Hussein. I didn't do anything like that. He wasn't a warmonger. I never believed he was. He did good with the Gulf War, and honestly, the Gulf War for me would have made me elect him to a second term if I was born in that. If I was 18 in that time period. But of course, that didn't happen because Ross Perot was a fucking moron. Did not know how to do things. Like, the only reason I think that he won because people didn't want to vote for an incumbent, and people didn't want to vote for Bill Clinton, so they decided to vote for Ross Perot, only they inadvertently gave the election to Clinton because Perot ended up fighting in Bush-controlled districts, and that's how he won. And that's how Clinton won, because he took a lot of the votes away from Bush and ended up handing it to Bill Clinton. But make of that what you will. And so, there's been a lot of discussion about his life and his legacy, the things that he did while he was in office, and his legacy as a warrior, as a fighter for the United States military, Navy pilot. Volunteered when he was 20 years old, giving up a scholarship at Yale to fight in the war. That's something me and thousands of other people can never do. That's brave. That's a brave thing, to fight for your country during World War II. Becoming a part of the greatest generation. I mean, that's a hard choice. And especially rejecting a scholarship to one of the biggest colleges in the country, that's a pretty big risk. That speaks to the will and the testament of a man like that. And that courage, led to his decisions in the Gulf War, and what led to the, quick liberation of Kuwait. And, argue about the merits all you want, he still did the right thing. And so, here you come to where in the aftermath of his death, the country's reeling. People who really respected him are like, well, damn, this is a sad thing. He's one of the last respectable presidents we've ever had. People who, even if you like Bill Clinton, will agree that he was a slob. And I'm pretty sure most people can agree that George W. Bush did not handle himself correctly in a lot of ways. Same thing with Obama, and in a lot of ways with Trump. So many people do see George H.W. as the last respectable president. He was the last president to act with some form of dignity and humiliation. That's honestly how I see it. And so when I see news clippings of people on the left praising George H.W. for being the last respectable president, I got a little curious and suspicious. Because this is the same thing that happened with John McCain. Remember in 2008 when people would call John McCain a warmonger, when people called him a racist, when people called him a sexist? And then after he died, all of a sudden, just because that he did not like Trump's agenda and wanted to oppose it, he was like, no. They're all like, no. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. We disagree with some of his past stuff, but because he defied Trump, yeah, he's a good man there. So I'm just sitting here thinking, why? Okay, this is a man that you despise, and you especially despised his son, to the point where Dan Rather threw out a fake story about his National Guard service, and then promptly lost his job over, and yet you're still propping this guy up like he's some sort of media godhood. Why is beyond me. Why would you do that? Okay? Why are you going to suddenly turn around on George H.W. after his death? Well, you're going to try to use it to go after Trump, which is exactly what people like Joy Behar did on The View. And if you haven't seen that clip of Joy Behar, woo, let me tell you, boy, it was not pretty. The View, I do not like The View. The View is really bad. It's a really bad show. The only good part of it is Meghan McCain throwing some slapdowns on everybody there who's a fucking idiot, especially Joy Behar. Sometimes Whoopi Goldberg, though I think Whoopi Goldberg is actually, based on what she did during the clippings, became a little bit more moderate in that sense. But I'll show you guys that clip.
Said, those who think we're powerless to do anything about the greenhouse effect are forgetting about the White House effect. And then he signed into law the Clean Air Act Amendment of 1990, one of the most sweeping environmental statutes ever. This president that we have now is trying to unravel everything that he did and Obama did. And if I ever become a one-issue voter, it will be about pollution and the greenhouse effect and
Can
the
we
fact
focus
that,
on the president, please? I don't want to talk about Trump when we're in the moment of we're honoring a great president who's passed.
Please. I want to talk about
but we're honoring, but I'm not interested in your one issue.
I don't care what you're interested in. I'm talking.
Well, I don't care what you're interested in
We'll
either.
be right back.
Okay.
Later, Christmas controversy.
See what I mean? And apparently afterwards, they could not get her to calm down before they had to come back to commercial break. And I applaud Meghan McCain for trying to keep, Joy Behar on track, because Joy Behar just went off on this, environmental. I want to become a one-issue voter because of environmental stuff, and President Trump's the enemy to the environment. Blah 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 blah. Like Meghan McCain's like, dude, stop. We're trying to honor the 41st president of the United States. Stop using a dead man. Stop using a recently deceased man, a deceased man with honor and integrity, to throw shade at President Trump. Okay, this is not the time. This is not the place. But she's going to, like, no. And they go arguing, and then Whoopi Goldberg looks straight at the camera and says, "We'll be right back." And it's honestly hilarious. But then the Joy Behar, she's lost her fucking mind. Okay, if there's an example of Trump derangement syndrome in popular media, it's Joy Behar, because she's that fucking stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She tries to know what she's talking about. She may be funny in her own right, but when it comes to politics, she should steer clear of it. But she won't. She won't, because whenever you're in Hollywood and you're famous, it's your obligation to talk about politics, even when you don't know what you're talking about. Excuse me. So yeah, that's a pretty weird thing, And you see all these politicians, especially the Obamas and the Clintons, they were there with Trump. And there's this meme going around of the presidents there. And people are like, oh, Obama's having to look over the children, or, oh, man, this is the most awkward family reunion ever, or something like that. And, it's just, honestly, I could give 2 fucks about what, except for President Trump. Because I already know that the Clintons and the Obamas were not very kind to the Bushes, especially Obama, because of how much he ripped his son up and down. And I think the only reason they really hung out so much after Obama won was the fact that, Bush was trying to calm the waters, and Obama only let him do it so that way he can appear as a moderate, despite the fact that his agenda was not clearly moderate. And, remember when Obama blamed everything? After he won his second term, he blamed all the problems on George W. Bush. Blamed everything on George W. Remember that? So, yeah. I don't buy or particularly care about the Obama's remorse towards George H.W. because I don't think it's genuine. I think they're dicks. They may be sad that he died. They may have gotten a little friendly with him, in fact. But seeing their past behavior, I don't buy it for a damn second. They're only doing it to appear moderate. And they tried to throw and the media are going to try to use it to throw shade at Trump. But there is an important issue to be had here. There's people on the left who are switching around and saying, oh, no, George H.W. was an honorable man, despite the fact that they were calling him so many things and trying to muddy his name about with things that weren't true when he was in office and afterwards. And it was only until Trump won that they finally started to hey, no, maybe he was a good guy after all. But they don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They just want to use it to throw shade at Trump because everything is about Trump, which is not where we should be going as a country. This entire thing is fucking stupid. Stop it now. But the only one I really care for, and especially the Clintons too, because it's my contention that Prospero was a douchebag who just wanted to get Clinton elected. But Bill Clinton said some stupid shit about Bush too. But I really do care about what Trump had to say, because I know that George H.W. was not very kind to Trump in the days leading up to the election. I wasn't either. I'm pretty sure, I think George H.W. said that he was like a buffoon or something like that. And, that led to some not so kind response from Trump. I know he hasn't been particularly kind to the Bushes either. But he didn't say a thing at the funeral. He didn't say a thing when he was in D.C. And, that's pretty telling. I mean, he did the same thing with John McCain when he died, which deserves a boatload of scrutiny that I can go through in another video, which I really wish I did poke about when it happened. But, he didn't leave the flag at half-mast the day after he died and, refused to even speak good things about him like you would with a person when they die. He was being 10 levels of douchebag with John McCain's death. So, but Trump, I think he said virtually nothing, and in some ways, that's a good thing, because you don't want to turn this into, it's all about me. But it's hard to do that when people make it about him when he's actively at the moment not trying to. And then he'll say stupid shit, mad that it's not about him, which he did. And then, and then the media say, oh no, this isn't about you, but they made it about him. All right, so I think Trump not saying anything at the funeral, I wish he would have just said something about him. At least tell a story about Bush. Or say, hey, I disagree with you personally on a lot of things. You may not have liked my conduct, and I may not have liked your conduct when you were in office, but you were an honorable man. You did what you thought was right, and I respect that. Even when you were under immense scrutiny, you held your cool. And I'm sorry. Something like that. Like if someone at the White House could have just whispered in Trump's ear, tried to put that idea in his head, I wish he would have done that, but he didn't. Instead, and then, no, if he'd done that, and then the media tried to spin it about him, saying, well, how dare he say all this good stuff about H.W.? Why does he care? He can spin it around and say, hey, you guys are being dicks. I'm trying to honor this good man's name. And you're just going around here making this all about me. Fuck you guys. You could have done that. Instead, he didn't. You know, that's a big missed opportunity, and it's also a bad move by Trump, in my opinion. And, you know, there's not a lot of people, and there are some people in terms of how stupid the left is when it comes to George H.W. Bush. They're actually more indicative of how people really think about George H.W. as a person. They think of him as a coward. They think of him as a warmonger. They think of him as a racist. Blah, 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 blah. There's probably a couple articles on Slate that are up that you can see where people are like, hey, we don't like George Herbert Walker because of this or that, and he wasn't a good man, and he didn't have any courage at all, despite the fact he volunteered at 20 years of age to go fight in World War II. And that's another thing. A big difference between Trump in terms of character and Trump and Bush in terms of character. Trump actively avoided the draft. Bush didn't. He actually volunteered to fight. So that's a big character thing. Make of that what you will. But, you know, I think it's really disgusting that people on the left are trying to have this faux sense of dignity when it comes to the memory of George Herbert Walker, despite the fact that they demonized him for years. And I mean, demonized him. Alright, it wasn't demonized as bad as his son, but he was demonized pretty badly. You know, it's disgusting. It's pretty disgusting to me. All right, as a guy who grew up, you know, I grew up in Texas. He's one of the reasons that he's the main reason that Texas went red. All right, he's had a lasting impact on the politics of my state. But it seems that we have gone away from that in recent years. And if things don't change in regards to Texas politics, we're going to be purple, and then in a few years we'll be back to blue. And if people don't try to learn from the example Bush tried to set in national politics, it is going to get really, really fucking ugly. All right, and I'm begging people in the House, in the Senate, media pundits, the President of the United States and his cabinet, I think Mike Pence, only good man in the administration that I can see right now. He's the only man that has actually acted with pure integrity. And honestly, I would have voted for him if he were running. But, man, get your shit together. Stop dividing people. Okay? I can realize you all want to be as partisan as you can be. But try to come together. Say, hey, we were wrong about this. And then say, hey, we were wrong about this too. Okay? Try to come together. Don't be stupid retards and divide the entire country and like just stop. Alright, don't be like Joy Behar. Don't be like Joy Behar. Just don't be like Joy Behar. And you know, don't go to stupid extremes. Do something that is worth your time and energy that isn't fucking stupid. Okay? And honor the good memory of how George H.W. was as a man. He was friendly with everybody, and try to lead from that example.